All right, everybody. This Wednesday, we are in North Attleboro at the Elks for their cruise night. I have never been to this cruise night. It is a beautiful location. I'll shoot a little bit of video around like just the spot of where we are. It's phenomenal. I think it's a little light tonight because it's like 90 degrees out, so it's a little warm. But the venue itself is absolutely stunning. So there's actually a lot of cool cars here, so I'll go around and shoot some of the stuff that I've seen here that maybe I haven't shot at some other shows. There's some stuff we're also familiar with, but there's a few that I really want to call out to you. Also, we have a first-gen Viper behind me. We've got a Delorean. There's a beautiful 69 Chevelle. I don't know if it's a clone, but it looks like, I mean, if it's a clone, it's a very good Yanko clone or tribute. So I'm going to go and shoot all of those, and we'll come back and talk to you in just a bit. All right, I wanted to shoot the grounds up here. It is absolutely beautiful. So if you get a chance to come up, they do it every other Wednesday. It does benefit cancer. They've raised $150,000 since 2014. Absolutely incredible. But it's just what a gorgeous view up here. It's at the Elks up here in North Attleboro. So please come up and check out the show if you haven't. I was thinking this is like a great family environment. They got picnic tables, they've got games. You know, how would you come and then you get to go look at classic cars and talk to nice people that like the car hobby. I think you should absolutely come check it out. It's a very cool venue. I'm gonna grab this one before it leaves, only because they're heading out. They gotta unfortunately had to leave for the night, but this is very cool. 81 first gen DeLorean. This is a manual car. Again, everyone knows this car from Back to the Future. These cars are pretty neat. The biggest challenge on this, obviously, John DeLorean had a dream of building these cars, worked for all these other companies. Built these in Ireland. They had a Renault motor, right? So they were a little underpowered, but if you get the 5-speed, it was pretty fun, and they just looked awesome. This one was just professionally restored, so very cool car. I wanted to shoot a little more on it, but they're heading out. But everyone loves to see a DeLorean. I mean, we all got to think of Back to the Future every time, and this one's super cool. Something very cool and very different. 1964 GMC truck, but this one has a few tricks hiding underneath. This was actually so the cab and the body was transferred over onto a 2002 Dodge 2500. So we have a Cummins turbo diesel. He did a great job. We were just talking, I think he did a great job of integrating the intercooler. There's really no space for it. But what's neat on this truck is obviously it's a dually, tow over 10,000 pounds. You can use it as a work truck, but it's got a really cool style, a great patina, but it's also a manual. What I love on this truck, and what people get tempted to do a lot, is take these trucks and turn them into like a modern interior. To me, the coolest part of the classic car, I'm okay if you rest them on like the engine and stuff, but don't change the interior, because that's what made these neat. Obviously the look on the outside is great, but I love that he's keeping it original to 64, the old gauges, the simplicity on these old trucks. We talk about all these were utilitarian back in the day. They were designed to go to work, haul stuff, go home. They weren't designed to go out to dinner. They weren't designed for comfort. They had like no creature comforts. You got a radio, you got a heater, and that's about it. And that's all you really needed. So I love this version of this. I think it's super cool. It looks great the way it's built. The smokestacks look great on it. I love the dualies. It's just a very cool rest-a-modded truck that keeps a lot of the originality where I think it needs to be, and added in the right mechanical touches to make it a lot more drivable and livable today. Get the owner over here, but I know he's been kind of walking around. This is so cool. I talked about that Viper GTS at the Bach Exotic car. So this is a first-gen Viper. I love this car. It's a V10, 8-liter, 400 horsepower, no safety aids, no anti-lock brakes, no airbags, nothing. This is as bare bones as it gets. And when you look at this car, when it was designed, these were designed to be the modern Cobra. And the first iteration is by far the purest iteration. I think about these 3-spoke wheels. Back then, they were super cool when the car first came out. They kind of lost a little bit of love as the car went along. I still think they look awesome. Again, in these cars, you have no windows. So if you look inside, you can see there is no external door handles. You have no spots to roll up a window or a power window. So there's a plastic window that slides into these 2 slots. There is a canvas roof that goes over the top to give you the barest minimum of protection from the elements. The car inside was designed to be very driver focused. So you can see you have your gauges for like oil pressure, temperature gauge, voltage meter, your tachometer, your speedometer. You have your, I believe, a 6-speed manual transmission, and that's about it on this car. About as bare bones as it gets. I love this version of the car, though. This is a beautiful version of an early Viper. It's so clean. People were notorious for burning their legs on that side exhaust. There is a warning somewhere on the car that tells you not to do that. But most of these early ones get pretty beat up, and this one looks so clean and so original. That gray leather interior, the stereo setup in there with the 2 speakers. I think those were subs, built right into the car. it's just designed for the ultimate open air experience, and it was really the spiritual successor to what Shelby was doing all those years, you know, before, and it's such a great version of it. I love this car, and I love how pure this version of the early Viper is. One of the coolest cars is the 1970 Trans Am right here, blue and white. This is one of the earlier versions of the Trans Am. The Trans Am first hit the market in '69, right? So you'd have the Firebird would come out a couple of years earlier in '67. '69 would give us the Trans Am. This is a beautiful version in the blue and white. As this car would continue along in the '70s, Pontiac kind of bucked the trend that everybody else did, right? Everybody else went to high, low horsepower, low cubic inch, smog-laden motors. Now Pontiac would continue the 455 Super Duty all the way on through 75. So the 455 motor would be a really powerful car. This would end up being one of the most powerful cars right after the muscle car era, because they were not kind of laden in this particular car with the smog stuff. They still had the smog emissions, but they still kept the big motor. Then you ran into some of the challenges with the gas crisis and some of the OPEC stuff, and Pontiac still put this car out. I love them for doing that. I think even as the cars would go along, the Grand Prix would still have a 400, or they go down to like a 307, and those would get really neutered and have not a ton of horsepower. But they really did give a lot of love to the Trans Ams as they continued on in the 70s. And this early version from 1970 looks absolutely incredible. The turned aluminum dash, the good-looking Pontiac, the 5-star wheels with the PMD center cap, looks awesome. The dash was always really pretty in these cars. I think it's what always stood out to me as a kid. You saw the Smokey and the Bandit versions, and they always look great. But they had that turned aluminum dash for a long time, and it always looked incredible. And just a great-looking car. And again, iconic in that blue and white. Very cool car. Kind of a cool combination here. We have a 2016 Z06, 650 horsepower, supercharged. The owner bought the car new. He said this is like his last Corvette. This was his last hurrah for the Corvette hobby, and I love it. It's this like beautiful maroonish color with the the tannish color top. And what was kind of neat about this is we have back-to-back. We have a C5 50th anniversary from 2003 right behind us in the very similar color combination. They're both gorgeous cars. I think when you look at the evolution, when you go from the C5 to the C7, the C5 was really the first of the good driving Corvette cars. I owned a C4. It was revolutionary when it came to performance and what it did compared to the C3s, but the C5s drove nice. Like, you could get into this car, you could go cruising. It was just a really nice car, and people were super content with it. They had the magnesium wheels. They really the body lines were really smoothed out. They made the hips a little wider. It was also a little easier to live with and get in and out of, right? My 93 was very difficult. I had a 40th anniversary. It was very difficult to get in and out of that car. The C5 50th anniversary, I did a beautiful job with, and it's much easier to live with every day in the car. And then you see the evolution into the C7s. You get the Z06s, active exhaust, the giant wheels, the huge brakes, the crazy performance. The Corvettes would continue to evolve, obviously, and this was the last version of the front engine rear drive before we get to the C8s. But what a way to end, and just a beautiful car, and a really nice example back-to-back of two cars that have a beautiful livery that look very similar together. Very cool car up here, this beautiful 63 Galaxy. This is a 390 car. I like the black, looks great on it. I've talked before, these these jet-inspired taillights look so good on this car. I think it's some of the best taillights Ford had on anything they actually made. You get the little small Dagmars in the back of the bumpers for protection. But this is just a really cool looking car. The Fords at this time were interesting, right? You think about the Impalas, which have become really iconic from these generations. The Fords for a long time didn't sell as well. You could get a Galaxy 500 for really cheap money, even a convertible for a long time. And that 390 motor was like that Thunderbird special motor, was a great motor. This one has a couple of really cool modifications. Obviously, most of it from the outside looks incredibly stock. Wheels look great on the car. But to me, what I like, it looks like this is maybe more of a modern shifter. It's a 4-speed. I think it's probably the original transmission, but a modern shifter. But the piece de resistance of this car, and you can see the air cleaner underneath it, is this the Thunderbolt hood scoop on the car, which looks awesome. It's that reverse teardrop on these cars that look absolutely great. You have the hood pins, just a great looking version of this 63. And I'm a pretty big fan. I just think it's a really pretty car. And I get these Fords are a little underrated. I like the grille, a little bit of the reverse concave curve on the grille, the 4 headlights. It's just super sharp, and I'm a big fan. Really nice. I want to shoot one of my favorite cars up here. I love a 69 Chevelle. This is a beautiful Yanko. I believe it's a tribute car. I don't see the Yanko, the Yanko YSC headrest, which doesn't necessarily mean it's a tribute, but again, these are incredibly rare. but this one's a really nice version of it. So, you know, it has the Yanko head covers. It's got the 427. Now, to give you a little perspective, in 69, the biggest motor you could get was the 396, which was actually like a 400, but it was still a small block. Chevy had this rule and GM had this rule. You couldn't put a big block in a intermediate car, which what the Chevelles were considered. So you had to get something with a small block. The way you could get around that was you get a Coupe car. You could do that in the Camaros, the Novas, and Chevelles. And Yanko also would do the same thing. You know, he would have basically the ability to go through and work with Chevy on the Copo team and actually go in and create these 427 cars. They call them the Yanko SC, the supercars, and most of them were manual transmissions. You could get an automatic. I love this car, and that butternut yellow with the vinyl top looks great. And again, you have the Yanko stripe. Everything is done right on this car, and again, I think the 69 Chevelle is one of the best looking cars ever made. It's one of my absolute favorites, and this is just a great version and a great tribute to a Yanko. And if it's real, more power to you, that's even cooler. But this is a really nice version of this 69 Chevelle, one of my absolute favorite cars of all time. All right, guys, I think I love a good story at the shows, and I got a chance to talk to the owner of this 1936 Ford Business Coupe. It's been in his family since the early 50s, but this car is a pretty cool story. So the car is pretty original, flathead V8, 3-speed manual transmission, still running like a 6-volt system. The car was repainted probably in the early 1950s, he said, when his dad got back from Korea, with enamel paint, so still very period correct. But this car is pretty neat for a couple reasons. One, I love the originality on it, right? I love the wheels, the wide white walls. The interior looks beautiful on the car. It's very cool. I love that wooden dash. The simplicity of the gauges is great. But this car's story is pretty cool in the back window here. So this car was originally owned by a doctor, and you can see that you had the original like parking pass sticker for the New England Deaconess Hospital, and for the Mystic River, the Tobin Bridge, so you could actually get across it. So, you know, they were hesitant to change out these rear windows because it actually helps tell part of the history of the car, which I think is so cool. These had a great looking front end. The nose was beautiful on these cars. If you look under the hood, super simple oil bath air cleaner, probably either a 1-barrel or a very small 2-barrel carburetor, flathead V8, but just a very cool car that, you know, really takes us back to the olden days of what these hot rods would have been. If someone had this car coming back from the Korean War, they would have had it in this version. It was a great little business coupe hot rod. It was super fun. It looked really cool. Now, another car we're going to shoot over here is this 87 Grand National. Interesting story on this car. I actually met the gentleman who owns it near my house. We're actually neighbors. He's like 2 or 3 streets down from me. He was putting air in a tire. I was riding my bike. I said, hey, you got to get over to some of the shows. And we were chatting a little bit. We never got a chance to connect again. But I love this story. He bought this in like the winter of '88. He's had it since. He's got he's driven the car all these years, which I think is great. We were chatting. It's got a few scratches and dings, but it's a 37-year-old car, right? 38-year-old car. I love everything on these. I've talked about the Grand Nationals a ton, and I love the Grand National. I think it's such a cool car. There is a T-Type here as well. I did a comparison video between the T-Type and the Grand National. For me, the Grand National was always the one I aspired to have for one simple reason. I don't mind anything on the outside. I do like the wheels better on the Grand National, but they just absolutely killed it with the interiors on these Grand Nationals. That black and silver two-tone with the Turbo 6 logo on the headrest is absolutely incredible. It is what separates this car. It makes it look so cool. What was funny to me, this car was faster than a Ferrari back in 1987. It was the fastest car. Road and Track had done an article on it. But in GM's wisdom, it still had an 85-mile-an-hour speedometer. Now, the Mustangs did as well. There was this kind of agreement that all of these cars, in the effort to slow down people and embrace the 55-mile-an-hour national speed limit, they would cut everything off to 85. Now, there were ways to circumvent that. You'd see the Trans Ams, the Corvettes, even the Turbo Thunderbirds would put in a digital speedometer to get around the 85-mile-an-hour. But if you had an analog speedometer in an American car in the 80s, it was 85 miles an hour, which was always wild to me, right? It was so easy to bury the speedometers in these cars. And I love the fact that he's owned it since new. It's very cool, and I always like sharing these original owner car stories. All right, guys, I'm going to do just one more last quick walkthrough. There is some other really cool stuff here tonight. I like this Duster with the, the Ghost Flames, the Eldorado, beautiful GMC truck. Very cool Tri-5 Chevy. Buick T-Type, just like I just talked about. Very similar to the Grand National. Other than the wheels and the interior, there wasn't a lot of external changes on it that were super noticeable. This gorgeous 429 Cobra Jet, we actually have shot this before at a few shows. Great looking Fairlane. As we go down the line, there's some other cool, I like that green Chevy a ton. You've got an older Caddy, We have the Little Red Express. We shot that show at the La Salette show a couple of years ago. And what's cool on that one is it's very original, right? I was asking about, the decals on the side. He wanted to keep it as original as possible. As we head down the end here, again, we have some really good-looking Tri-5 Chevys. Love this wagon down here. Probably one of my favorite cars up here tonight. That is gorgeous. Look at this car. Love the paint. The wagons are so cool. Everybody loves like the 57, but I think the subtler wings in 55 and 56 actually really look great on these cars. And just a really pretty version of that wagon. Again, and also a beautiful MG over here. When I was a kid, my friend's dad had a newer MG and I loved it. These little British sports cars look great. And this is a beautiful version of it. Love this car with the tan interior and the black, super clean. So some very cool stuff. All right, guys, we're going to show something a little different on the channel. This is John's Little Red Express. John and I have had a chance to talk at one of his shows before. John's been battling cancer, and one of the things he does to actually try to get rid of some of the neuropathy is he actually makes these rugs, and they're very cool. He was sharing his story with me. These are really well done. He's done a great job of actually going through and creating these all together. And again, he actually has the Ford. He has the Ford Ranchero. He has the Little Red Express. And he's done these to actually help combat it, like as for rehab for the neuropathy in his hands, and they're super cool. So I wanted to share these, John. We wish you the best of luck with all the treatment, everything that's going through that. Please continue to fight, and please continue to do the right thing, but I think it's great. And thank you for sharing these with all of us. You got a very cool truck. I remember you sharing your story about, we're not wanting to restore it, leave it original, leave all the decals on it. So thank you for sharing that, and thanks for sharing these. I'm a Cadillac fan, so I'm going to shoot this 1990 Cadillac Brome d'Elegance. This car's pretty neat. This has actually won some awards, some of the local shows. I like the big old Cadillacs. I just think they're cool. What was interesting, if you go back and look at the window sticker, this car was like $34,000 in 1990, right? It's a 5-liter motor. It is a 4-barrel automatic. But what's great on the Cadillacs, and what was the key on these was obviously the interior. These cars were so luxurious. This comes from a family. His grandfather actually owned 36 of these cars. One of the things that he loved on this, grandfather loved on this car, was that gold-plated grille on this car, the gold style grille on the car. That gave it a little bit of a different style, a little bit more of a classy look. And these cars, again, were just about comfort, about, this was kind of the end of this version of Cadillac, right? As you get into the next level of Cadillac just a few years later, you would start to get into like the DTSs and these different cars that were a little more angular, trying to compete more with the European cars, because the Cadillacs and the Lincolns of this time were still doing exactly what Cadillac did. They were catering to an older audience. They were making a car that was incredibly comfortable, but in all honesty, it was kind of a dinosaur from a technology standpoint, right? There was, not a lot of technology for performance or handling. It was all about this incredible interior with these seats that were incredibly comfortable, the pillow top on the back. Everything was just about creating the best version of comfort. But Cadillac would continue to evolve in the next few years, and you'd see a kind of a change to what Cadillac would become. There's a lot of cool stuff right now from Cadillac. But this is also a cool version of the last iteration of these really big luxury, the Luxo land boat cars from Cadillac and Lincoln from these time frames. All right, guys, thanks for checking us out. We're going to try to get to a couple more shows this weekend. The challenge is we might get some rain, unfortunately. Hopefully we don't, and we can go around and shoot some stuff. We're going to try to either get to the American Car Show Day at Los Anderson, or we're going to try to get to the Mustang Car Club of New England show up in Chelmsford, Mass on Sunday. Potentially Brockton Wheels of Time tomorrow night, depending on the weather, and I think there is another cruise night or show on Saturday. So we might get to 2 or 3 more shows this week if we can. But thank you for checking out the channel. If you haven't done it so far, please hit that subscribe button. We appreciate all of you. We'll talk to everybody soon. Thanks.